Missing drives in OS. Imagine plugging in a brand new, high-capacity hard drive, booting up your computer, and opening your File Explorer only to find that the new drive is completely invisible. It is a very confusing moment for a user, but as an information technology professional preparing for your CompTIA A+ Core 1 exam, you know exactly how to handle it. Troubleshooting a drive that is missing in the operating system requires a very specific, logical methodology. To secure your perfect score of 900, you have to split your investigation into two distinct phases. You must first check the physical hardware layer and then move up to the logical software layer. I will walk you through these concepts using clear, straightforward language so you can easily master this objective. The absolute first rule of troubleshooting a missing drive is that you cannot blame the operating system until you verify the hardware. If the motherboard does not know the drive exists, Windows will never see it either. Your first step is to restart the computer and enter the Basic Input-Output System, or BIOS. You must look at the list of connected storage devices. If the drive is completely missing from this firmware list, you are dealing with a physical hardware failure or a simple misconfiguration. For a traditional desktop computer, you must power it down, open the case, and physically verify the connections. For a standard hard drive or solid-state drive, make sure both the data cable and the power cable are firmly clicked into place. If you are installing a modern M.2 NVMe drive, you must ensure it is seated at the correct angle and screwed down properly into the motherboard slot. You must also be aware of a very common trick question on the certification exam regarding shared data lanes. On many motherboards, plugging an M.2 drive into the first slot will automatically disable SATA ports 5 and 6. If you plug a secondary hard drive into one of those disabled ports, the drive will simply not show up at all. Now, let us imagine the drive is perfectly visible in the basic input-output system, but when you boot into Windows, it is still missing from the File Explorer. This tells you the hardware is perfectly fine, but you have a logical software issue. The operating system sees the raw hardware, but it does not know how to talk to it or present it to the user. In a Windows environment, your primary troubleshooting tool for this scenario is a built-in utility called Disk Management. When you open Disk Management, you will encounter three highly testable scenarios. The first is a brand new, uninitialized drive. When you buy a drive from the store, it is completely blank. It does not have a file system yet. In Disk Management, it will appear as a block of space with a black bar over it, labeled as unallocated. To fix this, you must right-click the space, initialize the disk using the GUID partition table, and format it with a standard file system like NTFS. Only after you format it will Windows assign it a drive letter and make it visible for the user to store files. The second scenario involves a drive that already has data on it but suddenly disappears. In Disk Management, the drive partition might look perfectly healthy with a blue bar, but it is missing its assigned drive letter, like the D drive or the E drive. This frequently happens if a user plugs in a flash drive that temporarily steals the letter assigned to the internal drive. The operating system gets confused and simply hides the drive. The professional fix is incredibly simple. You just right-click the healthy partition and manually assign it a new, available drive letter, and the drive will instantly pop back up in the File Explorer with all of its data perfectly intact. The third scenario involves a foreign file system. Imagine a user takes a hard drive out of an old Apple Mac computer and plugs it directly into a Windows machine to retrieve their photos. The drive will be missing in the Windows File Explorer. When you look in Disk Management, the physical disk will be there, but Windows will simply call the partition healthy but unknown. This is because Windows cannot natively read the Apple file system or the Mac OS extended file system. The data is physically there, but Windows does not speak the language. To fix this without deleting the data, you would need to use third-party software that can read Mac-formatted drives or copy the data over a network instead. By logically dividing your troubleshooting process between the firmware level and the disk management utility, you will effortlessly track down any missing drive on your exam.